I always knew something was off. But even in my darkest moments, I couldn't have imagined just how deep Lisa's betrayal went. It all started last night when I got an anonymous text. Check Lisa's documents. Not everything is what it seems. I thought it was some kind of prank. I mean, who does that? But the longer I stared at the message, the more I felt something stir inside me. That same feeling that had been gnawing at me for months, whispering that something wasn't right. I decided to check. I didn't say a word to her. I waited until she fell asleep, then quietly got up, walked over to her desk, where she kept a locked drawer. I knew about it, but I had never thought of going through it. But now, the words from that text echoed in my head, louder than ever. My hand reached for the lockpicking tool I bought for something else entirely. Never thought I'd use it for this. 1 minute later, the lock clicked. I opened the drawer and pulled out a stack of papers. Passports, some bills, and then I saw an envelope. Written on it, in bold letters, DNA test results. My hands started shaking. No, this can't be. I ripped open the envelope, my heart pounding in my ears. The first thing that hit me was the date 4 years ago. 4 years. DNA test, paternity, excluded. 1 second. One brutal second and my entire world collapsed. I read the words over and over, as if I could somehow make them say something else. Lily's not my daughter. My heart felt like it was being crushed in a vice, my blood running cold. For years, she knew Lily wasn't mine for 4 years, and I was here, playing the part of a devoted father, while the truth was sitting right in front of me. I tried to breathe, but my chest felt like it was filled with cement. I sat down on the floor, unable to keep standing. How could she do this? What did I miss? Why didn't I see it? In that moment, every memory I had of Lily flashed through my mind. Her first steps, her laugh, those nights where I tucked her in and told her bedtime stories. I was there for all of it. Now all those memories felt like lies. And Lisa, she knew this entire time. How could she look me in the eye every day, play the role of a loving wife, knowing she had betrayed me in the worst possible way? I sat there in the dark, unable to move, unable to breathe. But that was only the beginning. I heard footsteps. Lisa. She walked into the room and stopped at the door, seeing me sitting there with the torn envelope in my hands. Her face froze for a second, but there wasn't any guilt. No shock. She wasn't surprised. "So, you finally figured it out?" she said coldly. I looked up at her, my mind numb. I could barely feel my body, but inside, everything was boiling. She stood there, calm as if nothing was happening. "For years, Lisa," I whispered. "For King years. How could you?" She shrugged, like we were talking about something trivial. "I did what I had to do. What, you thought this was your life? That you were in charge here?" She laughed, and it hit me harder than any punch ever could. "You've always been so naive. Lily, she's not mine?" My voice trembled just saying the words. "No, she's not," she answered with a cold indifference that made my stomach turn. "But you were convenient. Your money, your stability. You really think I married you for love? You were just the easy option. You have no idea who her father is, and trust me, you don't want to know." Her words obliterated whatever was left of me. I stared at Lisa, trying to make sense of the nightmare unraveling in front of me. It was like I was watching her speak from behind some thick glass, her words echoing but barely registering. The woman I had loved, the woman I built a life with, had just torn everything apart with a single, heartless sentence. "You were convenient." I stood up, still holding the DNA results, my legs trembling beneath me. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I need to know." My brain couldn't even process how much I hated myself for still wanting answers, for still hoping that somehow there was more to this than what she was saying. Her eyes narrowed, a small smirk forming on her lips. She was enjoying this. "It doesn't matter who he is. What matters is that you're not him," she said with a coldness I had never seen before. "You could never be." The words hit me like a sledgehammer, not just because of the insult, but because I realized something. This wasn't a sudden betrayal. She had been planning this, manipulating every single part of our life together, feeding me just enough love to keep me on a leash while she did whatever the hell she wanted. And I had no clue. Lisa glanced at the clock on the wall, completely detached from the chaos she had just caused. She sighed like this was some boring conversation she was ready to move past. "Honestly, I thought you'd never find out," she said, walking past me toward the dresser. "But I guess now that the cat's out of the bag, we can stop pretending." I grabbed her arm, desperate for something. An explanation, a shred of guilt, anything. "Pretending. We have a daughter, Lisa. We have a family." My voice cracked, anger rising like a tidal wave. "What the hell were you thinking?" She yanked her arm free and looked at me like I was some pathetic child who didn't understand the rules of the game. "You never had a family, Jacob?" She spat, her voice dripping with contempt. "You had a role. You played it well, I'll give you that. But a family? No, that's just the fantasy you were living in." I could feel something snap inside me. She had no remorse, no shame. And the worst part? She had been orchestrating this lie for years, while I was working late to pay the bills, while I was sacrificing everything to give us a better life, while I was up at night with Lily when she was sick. Every single moment that felt like a family, it was nothing but an illusion she had created to keep me in line. "Why didn't you leave?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Why drag this out for years? Why let me think she was mine?" Lisa laughed, a low, cruel laugh that cut right through me. "Why leave when I had everything I needed?" she asked, her eyes gleaming. "You were a good provider, stable, reliable. And Lily? She needed someone to call Dad. Didn't she?" I felt like I was going to be sick. Every word she said chipped away at my sanity, at the image of the life I thought I had. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but all I could do was stand there, my whole body shaking, staring at the woman I thought I knew. "So what now?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "You just keep living this lie? Or were you planning on walking away eventually?" Lisa crossed her arms and leaned against the wall, completely unfazed by my pain. "I don't know, Jacob," she said lazily. "Maybe I would have stayed for a few more years. Maybe not. But now that you know, well, I guess we'll see what happens next." That's when it hit me. She didn't care how this ended. She had been in control the entire time, playing both sides, and now, even after everything, she was still the one holding all the cards. She knew I was standing on the edge, teetering between rage and heartbreak, and she loved it. For a split second, I considered leaving right then and there, grabbing my keys, walking out the door, and never looking back. But I couldn't. Not yet. "Does Lily know?" I asked, almost afraid of the answer. "Does she know I'm not her real father?" Lisa shrugged, like it was an afterthought. "No, and she doesn't need to know," she said, checking her nails. "At least not yet. Why complicate things for her?" I was speechless. My mind was racing, trying to grasp the full scope of her deceit. She had been using me, using Lily all these years, and for what? A convenient life? A facade of stability? I wanted to scream at her, to make her feel even a fraction of the pain she was causing me. But all I could do was stand there, my heart shattering with each passing second. She straightened up, giving me a look that sent chills down my spine. "Look, Jacob, this doesn't have to be messy," she said, her tone suddenly calm, almost businesslike. "You can keep playing your part. We don't have to blow this all up. Lily doesn't need to know, and neither does anyone else. We can just carry on, like nothing had happened, like my entire life hadn't just been torn apart." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything, after all the lies, all the manipulation, she was offering me a deal. To stay in this twisted version of reality she had created. To keep pretending like I wasn't already drowning in the truth. But I wasn't ready to give her an answer. Not yet. I needed time. Time to figure out what the hell I was going to do next. Time to decide if I was going to burn it all down, or walk away quietly. Lisa turned away, already heading toward the bedroom as if this conversation was over. "Think about it," she said over her shoulder. "You know where to find me when you've made up your mind." I stood there, watching her walk away like this was some minor argument, like she had just asked me to pick up milk from the store. My mind couldn't process it. The sheer coldness, the calculated indifference. How the hell did I marry someone like this? How did I not see the monster beneath the surface for all these years? I couldn't stay in that room. I couldn't breathe the same air as her anymore. My legs moved on their own, and before I knew it, I was outside, sitting in my car, staring blankly at the dashboard. I didn't know where to go or what to do. The papers, those goddamn DNA test results, were still clutched in my hand, crumpled and sweaty from where I'd been gripping them too hard. My phone buzzed, snapping me out of the daze. It was a picture from earlier, one I'd taken of Lily just that morning. She was smiling, holding up a drawing she'd made for me. A normal day, perfect day. And now nothing was normal anymore. I thought of her little face, her laugh, her hugs, everything about her that had been the light of my life for the past 4 years. And suddenly, it hit me like a freight train. None of it was her fault. She had no idea who her real father was. To her, I was her dad. I was the one who kissed her scraped knees, helped her ride her bike, read her bedtime stories. That little girl was innocent in all of this. She didn't know what her mother had done, or how badly I was drowning in the truth. But that truth, it was tearing me apart. How could I even look at her the same way now? Knowing I wasn't really her father? Would I ever be able to love her the way I did before? Or would this knowledge poison every moment we shared? I sat there, suffocating under the weight of it all, when a sudden thought slammed into me. Who the hell is the real father? If Lisa had hidden this for 4 years, then there had to be someone else. Someone she had protected this whole time. I wasn't about to let that slide. I turned the car back on, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I was going to get answers, even if it meant dragging her back into the light. I drove for what felt like hours, my mind racing with 100 questions and no answers. When I finally got back to the house, Lisa was sitting at the kitchen table, casually scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. She didn't even look up when I came in, didn't acknowledge the hurricane that had torn through our lives. "We need to talk," I said, standing over her. She didn't even flinch, just slowly raised her head and gave me that same infuriatingly calm look. "What's there to talk about, Jacob?" she said flatly. "You know the truth now. What else is there to say?" I slammed the DNA results down on the table in front of her, the crumpled paper skidding across the wood. Her eyes flicked to it for a second before returning to mine, completely unfazed. "Who is he?" I growled, barely holding myself together. "Who's the real father?" Lisa tilted her head, pretending to think for a moment, as if she didn't already know the answer. "Does it really matter?" she asked, her voice dripping with condescension. "You're here, he's not. Isn't that enough?" I slammed my fist on the table, the sound echoing through the room. I didn't care about holding back anymore. "Stop King playing games, Lisa. Who is he? Tell me," she sighed, rolling her eyes like I was being unreasonable, like I was the one making things difficult. "Fine," she said, leaning back in her chair with a bored expression. "You really want to know? It's Michael." My brain froze. Michael? My best friend? The guy I'd known since college, who had been there through every major moment of my life. He was family. He was there the day Lily was born, for God's sake. He'd held her in his arms like she was his own niece. "Michael? You're lying," I said, though the pit in my stomach told me she wasn't. She couldn't be. Not Michael. Not him. Lisa smirked, leaning forward, elbows on the table, eyes locked on mine like she was savoring the moment, like she was proud of what she was about to say. "No, Jacob," she said slowly, like she was talking to a child. "I'm not lying. Michael's the father. Has been from the start." Everything inside me collapsed. It felt like the ground had just split open beneath my feet, and I was falling into a pit with no bottom. My best friend had slept with my wife. He was Lily's father. He had lied to my face for 4 years, pretending to be my brother, pretending to support me while he lived this double life. How long had it been going on? Were they still together? My mind was screaming with questions, but I couldn't form a single word. Lisa stood up, walking around the table until she was standing right in front of me, her eyes scanning my face for a reaction. I could feel her enjoying every second of my torment. "Look," she said, her tone almost mockingly sympathetic. "This was always going to come out eventually. You were just too blind to see it. But now you know. So, what are you going to do?" Her question hung in the air like a death sentence. What was I going to do? Her question hit me like a brick. What am I going to do? How the hell was I supposed to answer that? My wife, the woman I've spent years with, just admitted that the father of my daughter is my best friend. The betrayal was so deep, so tangled, that I couldn't see any way out. Every part of me screamed to explode, to break something, anything, just to release the fire boiling inside me. But Lisa, she just stood there, arms crossed, like this was all some twisted game. Her eyes locked on mine, searching for something. A reaction, maybe. Tears, rage, anything that would show her she still had control over me. But I wasn't going to give her that. I stared back at her, trying to swallow the knot in my throat. My mind raced, jumping between the memories of Lily and Michael. The backyard BBQs, the family trips, Michael holding Lily in his arms while I took pictures. Moments that felt so safe, so normal. Now they felt like poison, corrupting everything I thought I knew. How long? I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. Lisa tilted her head, playing innocent. How long what? She asked, dragging the words out, like she didn't already know exactly what I was asking. How long have you and Michael been sleeping together? I said, more forcefully this time. Her lips curled into that same cold smirk that had become her trademark since this nightmare began. She wasn't even ashamed, not a hint of guilt. Since before the wedding, she said, casually tossing it out like she was discussing the weather. Pretty much the entire time. He was there from the beginning, Jacob. You just never noticed. The words slammed into me like a freight train. Before the wedding. This wasn't just some fling. This wasn't a mistake. This was planned. The whole time, while I was standing there on that altar, making vows, promising forever, they were already in on it together. They both played me from the start. I could barely hear over the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I took a step back, gripping the edge of the counter just to steady myself. I felt like I was sinking, like the world was collapsing around me. I couldn't make sense of anything. You used me? I muttered, the realization hitting me like a wave. You never wanted me. You wanted him. Lisa rolled her eyes, clearly tired of the conversation. Oh, Jacob, don't make this into some sob story, she said, waving a hand dismissively. It was convenient. I needed security. You were safe, stable. Michael wasn't ready for that kind of commitment, so I married you. Simple. Simple. That's what my life had been reduced to for her. A simple transaction. Security in exchange for years of deception. I felt sick to my core. And Lily? I asked, forcing the words out through clenched teeth. Did Michael know she was his? Lisa nodded, almost as if she was proud of the answer. Of course he knew, she said. We've known from the moment I got pregnant. We had to, make sure the timing lined up so it didn't raise any suspicion. My entire body went cold. She had planned the pregnancy. They had timed everything to keep me in the dark, like I was some pawn in their sick game. Every single moment of joy I had with Lily, her birth, her first steps, her first words, had been a lie, a calculated lie. And Michael knew. He knew. And he stood beside me all these years, pretending to be my friend, pretending to be Lily's uncle. I felt the rage rising in me, uncontrollable, unstoppable. My hands clenched into fists, nails digging into my palms so hard it hurt. But I didn't care. I wanted to scream, to break everything in sight. I wanted to tear the entire house apart, as if somehow that would undo the years of betrayal. Where is he now? I demanded, my voice shaking with fury. Lisa's eyes flashed with something. Surprise? Amusement? Couldn't tell. Why? You gonna go find him, Jacob? Have some big confrontation? She mocked, clearly enjoying this far too much. He's probably at his place. Why don't you go pay him a visit? See if he'll give you the same answers. I took a step toward her, my entire body trembling with anger. I'm done playing your games, Lisa. I hissed. I'm done with you. But I'm not done with him. She laughed, actually laughed, like this was the most entertaining thing she'd heard all night. Oh, Jacob, grow up, she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. What are you gonna do? Go punch him? That's not gonna change anything. You're not gonna get your precious family back. And you sure as hell aren't gonna hurt him. He's got nothing to lose. That last sentence hung in the air, and suddenly, it clicked. Michael had nothing to lose. I was the only one who stood to lose everything. My marriage, my daughter, my entire life. It had all been set up so perfectly for them. They'd played their parts so well. keeping me in the dark while they built their little secret life behind my back. And now I was left with nothing. But I wasn't going to let them walk away unscathed. Not anymore. You're right, Lisa, I said, my voice eerily calm. I'm not going to get anything back. But I can make sure you both lose too. For the first time that night, I saw a flicker of concern in her eyes. She straightened up, her smirk fading just a little. What are you talking about? She asked, suddenly cautious. I turned and headed for the door, grabbing my keys off the counter. You'll find out soon enough, I said, without looking back. As I walked out the door and slammed it behind me, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do next. But one thing was crystal clear. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. Not Lisa, not Michael. They thought they'd won. But I still had the power to burn everything they'd built to the ground. I got into my car, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. The world outside the windshield blurred as my mind raced, fueled by a toxic mix of rage and disbelief. Michael, the guy who stood beside me at my wedding, who had toasted to my happiness, who was there for Lily's birthdays, pretending to be her uncle. I could see his face so clearly now, every memory sharp with the new knowledge that he was the one who had taken everything from me. He was always there, lurking in the background of my life, playing the role of my best friend while screwing my wife. And Lily, he'd been her real father this whole time, smiling at me like I was the fool, knowing the truth while I was living a lie. I couldn't just sit there and let it happen. I had to confront him. I threw the car into gear and peeled out of the driveway, the tires screeching as I sped down the road toward Michael's place. Every streetlight blurred past as I ran the conversation through my head, over and over, preparing for what I'd say when I saw him, how I'd make him explain it all, how I'd tear him apart for what he'd done. As I neared his house, I slowed down, the adrenaline in my veins spiking. His car was in the driveway. Of course it was. He was probably sitting in there, sipping a beer, not knowing I was about to show up and blow his life apart just like he'd done to mine. I parked a few houses down, taking a moment to gather myself. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, but I didn't care. I had one focus, Michael. I needed answers. I needed to see the look on his face when I confronted him with the truth. I got out of the car, walking toward his house like a man on a mission. The night air was cool, but I barely felt it. Everything around me was a blur. I was drowning in rage, my mind fixated on one thing, making him pay for what he'd done. I reached the door and raised my fist, pounding on it hard enough that the door shook on its hinges. I didn't care. I wanted him to know I was here. There was a pause, a moment where I could hear my own heavy breathing, the blood pumping in my ears, as I stood there waiting for him to answer. Then the door creaked open, and there he was, Michael, looking so calm. He didn't seem surprised to see me. In fact, it was almost like he had been expecting this moment. Jacob, he said, his voice too casual, too smooth. I figured you'd be stopping by. He knew. He wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. I didn't waste any time. Angie cowered. I spat, my voice shaking with fury. How long? How long have you been lying to me? Michael leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, looking like he was barely fazed by the storm brewing in front of him. Since the beginning, he said, his eyes steady on mine. Since before the wedding. That admission was a punch to the gut, even though I'd already heard it from Lisa. Hearing it from him, though, hearing the calmness in his voice, like it was just a fact of life, it made the rage boil over. You've been screwing my wife? I growled, stepping closer. While pretending to be my best friend, you stood there in my house, next to my daughter, next to me, for years, knowing the whole time she was yours. He didn't flinch. He just stared back, almost too calm, like he was in control of the situation, like he'd won already. Lily is mine, he said softly. And deep down, you always knew something was off, didn't you? You just didn't want to see it. That was it. I snapped. I grabbed him by the collar, slamming him against the doorframe, my hands shaking with the urge to do something. To hit him, to make him feel even a fraction of the pain he had caused me. You've ruined everything, I shouted, my voice barely holding together. And ruined my life. Michael, to my shock, didn't fight back. He just stood there, looking me dead in the eyes, not a trace of fear in him. "I didn't ruin your life, Jacob," he said, his voice low, deliberate. "Your life was built on a lie, and now you know the truth." That calmness, that cold, detached calmness, made me want to rip him apart, but I couldn't. My hands trembled as I held him against the door, every ounce of control slipping away. But his words stopped me. "What's the plan, Jacob?" he asked, his voice still steady. "You gonna hit me? That's not gonna fix this. You can't change what's already done." I let go of him, stumbling back as my mind raced. He was right. Hitting him wasn't going to fix anything. It wouldn't undo the fact that Lily was his, that my entire life had been one long con. The anger started to mix with something else, something worse. Despair. Hopelessness. "Why?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why did you do this?" Michael straightened up, brushing off his shirt like it was no big deal. He looked at me with something like pity in his eyes, and for a second, I thought he might actually give me a real answer. "Because I could," he said simply. "Because you let it happen. You were too busy being the perfect husband, the perfect father, to even notice what was going on right under your nose." His words sank in, cutting deep. And the worst part of me knew he was right. I'd been blind. I trusted them both so completely that I never saw what was happening right in front of me. I stumbled back, my mind spinning, feeling like the ground was slipping out from under me. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Everything felt too heavy, too overwhelming. Michael stepped forward, lowering his voice, almost whispering. "Go home, Jacob. You're done here." He turned, ready to walk away, ready to let me leave broken and defeated. But I wasn't done. Not yet. "Does Lily know?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Does she know I'm not her real father?" Michael paused, looking back at me, a strange look in his eyes. "No," he said after a moment. "And it's better if she doesn't." That was the final blow. That was the part that broke me. She didn't know. All this time, Lily had no idea. To her, I was her father, the man who raised her, who loved her, who protected her. And now, I had no idea what to do with that. I couldn't destroy her world the way mine had been destroyed. But how could I live with this truth? How could I keep pretending when every part of me was shattered beyond repair? I turned and walked away, each step heavier than the last. I didn't know what was waiting for me when I got home, but one thing was clear. There was no going back to the life I once had. I drove back home in silence, my mind numb from the confrontation with Michael. The road stretched out in front of me like an endless void, each passing streetlight casting long, cold shadows that seemed to mirror the darkness growing inside me. I wasn't even sure what I was returning to. The house that was supposed to be my sanctuary now felt like a stranger's home. It wasn't mine anymore. Maybe it never had been. As I pulled into the driveway, I just sat there, staring at the front door. Behind it, Lisa was likely waiting, probably imagining she had one, that I would come crawling back, too broken to fight anymore. But I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. Not yet. I walked in, the sound of the door creaking open echoing through the empty hallway. The house was too quiet, too still. Every piece of furniture, every picture on the wall seemed to mock me, reminders of the life I thought I had. I could almost hear the ghost of my former self moving through the house, laughing with Lily, sharing quiet moments with Lisa on the couch. But those moments were dead now. I found Lisa in the kitchen, casually sipping on a glass of wine like it was any other night. She didn't look surprised to see me, nor did she ask how things went with Michael. She was too smart for that. She knew what she had done, and she knew it was tearing me apart. The only question now was how I would respond. She gave me a cold smile as I walked in, swirling the wine in her glass like she was celebrating some small victory. "So, how was your little talk?" she asked, her tone almost playful. "Did Michael give you the closure you were looking for?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. There were no words for the storm brewing inside me. No way to express the mixture of rage, pain, and emptiness that filled every corner of my soul. She sighed dramatically when I didn't respond, setting down her glass on the counter. "Jacob, let's be honest here," she said, stepping toward me. "You had to know this was coming. You've been living in this fantasy for years. Did you really think it was all going to last? Did you really think you could keep pretending?" I clenched my fists, trying to keep my emotions in check, but her words hit me like daggers. She spoke like it was my fault, like I was the one to blame for believing in the life we had built together. She was twisting the knife deeper, and she knew exactly how to do it. "You're not going to win this, you know?" she continued, her voice smooth and calculated. "You can fight all you want, but in the end, you're just delaying the inevitable. Michael and I, we were always going to come out on top." There it was, the full confession. The truth she had been hiding beneath layers of deception for so long. She didn't just cheat on me. She played me, used me, and now she was standing there, in our kitchen, declaring her victory over the life she had destroyed. "Lily," I said finally, my voice barely more than a whisper. "What about Lily? What happens to her in all of this?" Lisa's smile faltered for a moment, but only for a second. "Lily will be fine," she said, her tone softening slightly, as if that could make any of this better. "She'll never know the truth, Jacob. Not unless you tell her. And we both know you won't do that. You love her too much to destroy her world like that. Don't you?" Her words stung because they were true. As much as I hated Lisa, as much as I wanted to expose her for the heartless monster she was, I couldn't bring myself to hurt Lily. She was innocent in all of this. She didn't deserve to have her life shattered just because her parents had built it on a lie. I stood there, silent, as Lisa stepped closer, her eyes locked on mine. "So, what's it going to be?" she asked, her voice low, seductive even, like she was daring me to make a move. "Are you going to keep fighting? Or are you going to accept the truth and move on? You can keep playing the role, Jacob. We both know you're good at it." My hands were trembling. I wanted to scream at her, to throw that wine glass against the wall, to burn the whole damn house down just to watch her lose everything like I had. But as I stood there, staring at her, something inside me shifted. I realized I didn't need to fight her. Not in the way she expected, because she didn't care about the fight. She didn't care if I screamed or raged. She thrived on it. She wanted me to lose control. That's how she stayed in power. But there was something else I could take from her. Something far more important than my anger. My silence. "You're right," I said quietly, my voice suddenly calm. "Lily doesn't deserve this." For the first time, Lisa seemed thrown off. She blinked, unsure of what I meant. "What are you? She deserves better than this?" I cut her off. "Better than you. Better than both of us." Lisa's smile faltered completely, replaced by a flicker of confusion. "What are you talking about, Jacob?" I stepped closer, so close I could see the small flicker of fear in her eyes. She wasn't in control anymore. "I'm leaving," I said, the words coming out with a clarity I hadn't felt in days. "And I'm taking Lily with me." Lisa's eyes widened, her entire body stiffening. This wasn't part of her plan. She had never expected this. "You can't be serious," she scoffed, but there was a tremor in her voice now. "You think you can just walk away and take her? You're not her real father." I leaned in, my voice steady, filled with the resolve I didn't know I had. "I'm the only father she's ever known, and I'm not going to let her grow up in this twisted mess you've created." Lisa's face twisted with anger, her composure cracking for the first time. "You can't just take her," she snapped, her voice rising. "She's my daughter. She's our daughter," I said, my voice low but firm. "And I'm going to fight for her. You want to play games, Lisa? Fine. But you won't win this one." She stepped back, eyes narrowing, trying to regain control, but I could see the panic behind her mask. She hadn't counted on this. She thought I'd crumble, that I'd stay and suffer in silence. But I was done being her pawn. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving her standing there, speechless. As I climbed the stairs to Lily's room, I could hear Lisa's voice calling after me, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I opened the door to Lily's room, finding her fast asleep, her small chest rising and falling softly under the blanket. For a moment, all the noise, all the chaos of the past few days faded away, and I just stood there watching her. She didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change. But I would make sure it was for the better. I would fight for her even if it was the last thing I did. The next morning, everything felt different. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, the house eerily quiet. Lily was still asleep upstairs, and Lisa was in the bedroom, probably planning her next move, trying to figure out how to regain control. But it didn't matter anymore. I'd made my decision. I wasn't going to let her win, not where Lily was concerned. I could hear her footsteps before she even entered the room. Lisa walked in, her face a mask of forced calm, but I could see the tension in her eyes. She knew something had shifted. She just didn't know how far I was willing to go. "So, what's your big plan?" she asked, leaning against the counter, her arms crossed. "You really think you're just going to take Lily and leave? You can't do that, Jacob." I looked up at her, my grip tightening on the coffee cup. "I'm her father, Lisa. Maybe not by blood, but I've been there for her every single day. She's mine, and I'm not going to let you destroy her life." Her lips curled into a cold, mocking smile. "Oh, please, don't start with the hero complex," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You think you're doing this for Lily? You're just doing it for yourself, because you can't handle the truth. You want to run away and pretend everything's fine, but it won't be." I set the cup down slowly, meeting her gaze. "This isn't about me," I said, my voice steady. "This is about what's best for her." Lisa pushed off the counter, pacing across the room, her heels clicking on the tile. "What's best for her?" she repeated, shaking her head. "Jacob, you're living in a fantasy. You can't just run away from this. You think taking Lily away from her mother is going to fix everything? She's going to find out eventually. She's going to hate you when she does." That hit me harder than I wanted to admit. Deep down, I knew there was a grain of truth in what she said. One day, Lily would find out that I wasn't her biological father. And what if she did hate me for it? What if she felt betrayed, just like I had? But that didn't matter now. What mattered was protecting her from the chaos that Lisa had created. "I'm not running away," I said firmly. "I'm protecting her. From you. From all of this." Lisa's face hardened, the smirk fading. "You think you're the good guy here?" she hissed. "You think you're the victim? You're no better than me. You just want to be the one in control. But guess what? You'll never have it. I'm her mother. You can't take her from me." I stood up, my fists clenched at my sides, the anger rising again. "You're not the mother she needs," I shot back. "You've been lying to me, to her, for years. You don't care about what's best for her. You only care about yourself." Lisa stepped closer, her eyes blazing with fury. "You think I don't love her?" she snapped. "I've been raising her just like you have. I've given up just as much. You don't get to decide what's right or wrong for her. You think she's better off with you? A man who couldn't even see what was happening right under his nose." Her words cut deep, but I wouldn't let her see how much they hurt. I was done letting her manipulate me. I stood my ground, my eyes locked on hers. "You're not the only one who's sacrificed," I said, my voice low and steady. "But I'm not going to let you drag her into your mess. You've lied, cheated, and destroyed everything. I won't let you take her down with you." For the first time, Lisa seemed to falter. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. Instead, she turned away, walking toward the window and staring out at the backyard, where Lily had once played so happily, oblivious to the storm brewing between her parents. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall, the distant hum of a lawnmower in a neighbor's yard. It was a stark contrast to the war raging inside the house. Finally, Lisa spoke, her voice quieter this time. "You really think you can just take her and leave?" she asked, still staring out the window. "You think the courts will side with you? You don't even have a real claim to her." Her words hung in the air, and for a moment, I wasn't sure how to respond. She was right, in a way. Legally, I wasn't Lily's father. If this went to court, I had no idea what would happen. But I wasn't going to back down now. "Maybe not," I said, stepping closer. "But I'll fight for her. And you know what? I think the courts will see what kind of person you really are." Lisa turned around, her face a mix of anger and something else. Fear. Maybe. She wasn't used to me standing up to her like this. I'd always been the passive one, the one who tried to keep the peace. But that version of me was gone. "You're going to lose, Jacob," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "You're going to lose everything." I took a deep breath, the weight of her words settling in. Maybe I would lose. Maybe the courts wouldn't side with me. Maybe Lily would grow up hating me for taking her away from her mother. But I wasn't going to let Lisa keep manipulating me, keep controlling the narrative. I wasn't going to let her win without a fight. Maybe, I said softly, but at least I'll know I tried. I'll know I did everything I could to protect her. Lisa's eyes flashed with something. Rage? Panic? I couldn't tell. And she stormed out of the kitchen, slamming the door behind her. I stood there, my heart pounding in my chest, trying to catch my breath. The battle was just beginning, and I didn't know how it would end. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let her destroy Lily's life the way she had destroyed mine. The door slammed behind her, the echo hanging in the air like a gunshot. I stood there for a moment, staring at the empty space where she had been, trying to steady my breathing. My hands shook slightly, not from fear anymore, but from the weight of what came next. I wasn't naive. I knew the fight would be brutal. I knew Lisa wouldn't just let me walk out of here with Lily without a fight. But this was bigger than me, bigger than us. Lily needed to be safe from the toxic mess her mother had created, and I was the only one who could give her that. I walked upstairs to Lily's room. She was awake now, sitting in bed, rubbing her eyes. She looked up at me with that same innocent smile that had always melted my heart. And for a moment, all the anger and chaos melted away. "Hey, Daddy," she said, her voice soft and sleepy. I sat on the edge of her bed, my heart breaking for her. For the innocence she didn't even know was being shattered all around her. I ran my fingers through her hair, trying to hold back the flood of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. "We're going to take a little trip, okay?" I said, keeping my voice calm. "Just you and me." Her eyes brightened. She didn't ask where or why. She trusted me completely, and that trust made my chest tighten with both love and the crushing weight of responsibility. "Okay, Daddy," she chirped, jumping out of bed to get dressed, excited like it was some fun adventure. As I packed her things, the reality of what I was about to do settled in. I didn't know what the future held, whether I'd win custody, whether I'd lose it all in court, whether I'd even be able to give her the life she deserved. But one thing was certain. I was taking the first step to pull her out of this nightmare. I went downstairs, glancing toward the closed door of the bedroom where Lisa was probably plotting her next move. She wouldn't let this go. I knew that, but she also didn't expect me to go through with it. With Lily's hand in mine, I grabbed my keys and walked to the front door. Just as I was about to step out, I heard Lisa's voice behind me, sharp and cutting. "You think this is over?" she snapped. "You can't just walk away, Jacob." I turned, meeting her eyes one last time. There was no more fear, no more hesitation. "It's over when I say it is," I said quietly. "And I'm done playing your game." Without waiting for her response, I opened the door, stepping outside with Lily by my side. The air outside felt different, colder, fresher, like the start of something new. As I buckled Lily into the car, I glanced back at the house one last time. The life I had built, the lies I had lived through were all behind me now. I didn't know what came next, but for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt in control. I got in the car and drove away, Lily's small hand resting on mine as we left the wreckage behind. And I knew, no matter what, I'd keep fighting for her.
18 years of marriage, and one gunshot from his own mother changed everything. It started with an accusation. His wife had been cheating, and his mom, who never liked her, claimed their son wasn't even his. But what happened next? That's the part you won't believe. The gunshot was just the beginning, and the truth he uncovered afterward, it shattered his entire world.
18 years. That's how long I've been with Tanisha. 18 years of marriage, raising our son, Jaden, building a life. I used to think we were solid, unbreakable. You know that feeling? When you've been together so long, the small cracks don't even register anymore. They just become part of the walls you live inside. But recently, something shifted. Tanisha became harder to reach, her smile a little too polished, like it was painted on to hide something I wasn't supposed to see. The late-night texts, the sudden need for alone time, the constant checking of her phone. Subtle things like pieces of a puzzle that don't quite fit together. I told myself I was imagining it. After all, we've been through worse, right? I mean, we had to navigate my mother's constant disapproval since the beginning. My mom, Margaret, has never exactly welcomed Tanisha with open arms. Mom has always had this way of smiling while sharpening her knife behind your back. Over the years, she'd drop comments like breadcrumbs, leading to places no one wanted to go. "Oh, you know how those people are," she'd say, then laugh like she was just joking. But it wasn't funny, not to Tanisha, not to me either. Still, I thought we kept it manageable. Tanisha was always the strong one. She'd stare Mom down, fire back with her quick wit, and I'd try to mediate the best I could, juggling the roles of husband and son like a circus act. But 2 days ago, we were at Mom's place for her birthday. It was supposed to be a simple family gathering. The sun was setting, painting the sky in those soft oranges and purples that make you forget how dark things can really get. We were sitting in the backyard, the three of us, trying to keep things cordial. I could feel the tension in the air, but I thought we'd get through it. Then out of nowhere, Mom drops the first bomb. "I've been thinking," she said, leaning back in her chair, arms crossed like she was about to say something casual. But the way she looked at Tanisha, no, through her, set off alarms in my head. "Jaden doesn't look much like you. Does he, Brad?" My world stuttered for a second. I didn't even know how to respond. It was like my brain hadn't fully registered the blow. But Tanisha, she didn't flinch. She just locked eyes with my mother, the air between them crackling like a live wire. "You want to repeat that?" Tanisha's voice was steady, too steady, like the calm before a hurricane. Mom didn't hesitate. She doubled down. "I'm just saying, Jaden looks a little too different, don't you think? He's taller than Brad, lighter-skinned. Maybe someone else is his father, and you're just playing the race card to cover it up." There was the bomb that shattered everything. I looked at Tanisha, waiting for her to explode, waiting for the fierce woman I married to tear my mother apart with her words. But she didn't yell, didn't scream. She just stood up, slow and deliberate, like she was measuring the weight of every second before she spoke. "That's what this is?" Tanisha's voice was low, but sharp enough to cut. "You're using your disgusting racism as an excuse to accuse me of cheating? You really believe that?" Mom's lips curled into a half-smile, like she was enjoying this, like she knew something I didn't. "I'm not saying anything I don't know. You've been sneaking around. Maybe Brad's too blind to see it, but I'm not. Jaden isn't his." My stomach dropped. The ground felt unsteady beneath me. I wanted to defend Tanisha. I needed to, but something in her eyes stopped me. She wasn't angry the way I expected. She was calculating, and that's when the doubt slithered in. Was it just my mom being her usual manipulative self? Or was there something real buried underneath all that venom? I looked at Tanisha, searching for something, anything that would give me clarity. But her expression was a mask I couldn't read, and that scared me more than my mom's accusations. The silence that followed felt like an avalanche. Heavy, crushing. I stood there between them, trying to process the chaos Mom had just unleashed, but my mind wouldn't settle. I'd heard rumors, whispers from her before. Mom always had a way of twisting reality to fit her bitterness. But this time, her words weren't dissolving in the usual cloud of resentment. They lingered, like smoke from a fire still burning. Tanisha broke the silence first. "Brad, are you seriously just going to stand there and let her say that?" She wasn't shouting, but the way she said my name, there was an edge to it, a challenge. Her eyes locked onto mine, demanding something from me. Loyalty? Defense? But I didn't know what she wanted to hear. Honestly, I didn't know what I wanted to hear. "Mom, you need to stop," I said, my voice shakier than I expected. I turned to her, expecting her to back down, to realize she'd crossed a line. But she didn't. She dug in. "Stop? Brad, you're smarter than this." Mom shot back, her voice hardening like she was the one being wronged. "You really don't see it? She's been playing you for a fool. Look at how she's been acting, coming home late, all those sudden work trips. And you're telling me Jaden doesn't look like a different man's son?" Tanisha didn't even blink. She stood there, arms crossed, jaw tight, like she'd heard enough. "You're just bitter that your son didn't marry a perfect little white girl like you wanted," she said coldly. "And now you're grasping at straws. Racist and desperate. You think this is about race?" Mom shot back. "It's about the truth. I'm not the one lying here. You are." This was spiraling. Fast, the woman I loved, and the woman who'd raised me, going at each other's throats, and I was stuck, frozen in the middle, pulled in two directions. I should have stood up for Tanisha. I wanted to, but Mom's words, those specific words, had carved out a doubt in me I couldn't just ignore. Why? Why was that doubt even there? I trusted Tanisha, or at least I thought I did. But now, the last few months of her distant behavior, her late nights, all the pieces I'd tried to push aside started clicking into place. Could my mom, actually be right? I hated the thought, but once it rooted itself in my brain, it was impossible to shake. I'm not doing this, Tanisha said suddenly, throwing up her hands. I'm not standing here defending myself against this garbage. You know who I am, Brad. She shot me a look, a deep, piercing look that felt like it was trying to drag the truth out of me. If you believe her, then say it. Right here, right now. I couldn't breathe. My mind was spinning. My eyes darted between them. My mom, standing with a kind of righteous fury in her eyes like she had exposed some dark truth. And Tanisha, who didn't look scared or defensive, she looked tired. Like she'd been carrying the weight of this for far longer than I realized. Do you? Tanisha asked again, her voice dropping to something barely above a whisper. She wasn't challenging me anymore. She was searching for the truth in me. And I couldn't answer. I can't. The words stuck in my throat. I need to know the truth. The second the words left my mouth, Tanisha's face changed. Her eyes went cold, like I'd just confirmed something she'd always feared. She didn't look hurt. She didn't even look surprised. She just shook her head slowly, like I had failed some unspoken test. I see how it is, she said, her voice flat and motionless. You think I'm lying too? I didn't say that. I tried to backtrack, my heart pounding. Everything's coming at me all at once, and I don't. You don't know what to believe. She finished my sentence for me, her tone sharp. After 18 years, you still don't know who to trust. Your mother, who's been undermining our marriage since day one, or your wife. I didn't know what to say. Every word felt like it would make things worse. And then, without another word, Tanisha turned and started walking toward the car. She didn't yell, didn't slam the door, didn't even look back. She just left. Mom crossed her arms, watching her go. See? She's running because she's guilty. I've been telling you this for years. She's not who you think she is. I stood there, rooted to the ground, still trying to process everything. Was she running because she was guilty? Or because I had let her down? And then something strange happened. As Tanisha was about to pull out of the driveway, she hesitated. Her brake lights flashed, and for a moment, I thought she'd come back. That maybe, just maybe, we could fix this. But instead, she rolled down her window and said something I'll never forget. If you want answers, Brad, maybe you should ask your mom why she has a gun in the house. And with that, she drove off, leaving me standing there in shock. I turned to Mom, my stomach churning. A gun? What the hell was she talking about? I looked at Mom, who, for the first time that evening, seemed rattled. She glanced back at the house, her expression shifting just enough for me to catch it. A flicker of panic. What did she mean by that, Mom? Mom's eyes narrowed, and her voice dropped low. I don't know what she's talking about, she said too quickly, too rehearsed. But now, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't the only one hiding something. The driveway was empty now, the sound of Tanisha's car fading into the distance, but her words hung in the air like a noose around my neck. Maybe you should ask your mom why she has a gun in the house. I turned toward Mom, heart pounding. She stood there, arms crossed, her lips pressed into that thin, hard line she always wore when she wanted to look in control. But this time, something was off. I could feel it. Her eyes weren't meeting mine, and there was a stiffness to her, like she was bracing for something. Mom, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. What the hell is she talking about? Why would she say you got a gun? Mom's gaze flicked to the house for just a split second, so fast I almost missed it, but I caught it. There was something in there she didn't want me to see. Brad, don't be ridiculous, she scoffed, but there was a crack in her voice. She's just trying to throw you off. Make me look crazy. She waved her hand dismissively. A gun? Really? What kind of nonsense is that? Except it didn't feel like nonsense. Not the way Tanisha said it. Not the way Mom was acting now. "Where's the gun, Mom?" I asked again, stepping closer. "Is it true?" She held her ground, but I could see her composure slipping, like she was grasping at straws. "Brad, you're my son. I've always been honest with you. It's her. She's the one who's been lying. She's trying to make me look like the villain here." But I wasn't listening to her anymore. My feet started moving on their own, heading toward the house, my mind racing. Every instinct in me was screaming that something was wrong, something more than just the cheating accusations or the racism that had tainted our family for years. I stormed through the front door, heading toward the hallway closet, Mom's catch-all for junk she didn't want anyone to see. I could hear her footsteps behind me, fast, desperate. "Brad, stop! You're not thinking straight," she called after me, her voice sharp, like she was trying to regain control of the situation. But I wasn't stopping. I couldn't. I yanked open the closet door, tossing aside old coats, boxes, anything that got in my way. Mom was right behind me, her hands grabbing at my arm, trying to pull me back. "Brad, this is insane. There's no gun. She's manipulating you." Her voice was rising now, hitting a pitch I'd never heard from her before. And then my hand brushed against something cold. It was small, metal, tucked in the back behind a stack of old photo albums. My fingers wrapped around the handle, and I pulled it out slowly. A gun. I turned around, holding it in my hand, staring at it like it was some foreign object. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. Why would she have this? Why didn't I know? Mom's face drained of color. She stopped pulling at my arm, her eyes locked on the gun. For a split second, she looked terrified, completely exposed. "You don't understand," she said quickly, her voice shaky now, no longer in control. "It's just for protection. After your father died, For protection?" I cut her off, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. "Protection from what, Mom? From Tanisha?" The silence that followed was deafening. Mom swallowed hard, stepping back, but there was no hiding the truth anymore. Not with the gun in my hand. "She's dangerous, Brad," she said, her voice lowering to a whisper, as if that made the words more believable. "I've been trying to protect you. You're my son. I had to keep you safe." Safe? From the woman I'd built a life with? The mother of my child? This wasn't about safety. This was something else, something darker. And that's when it hit me. "You knew, didn't you?" I said, my voice trembling with the realization. "You knew about the cheating." Her eyes widened for a split second, then narrowed, her mouth tightening. "I suspected," she admitted, her tone flat. "But I didn't know for sure. Not until I saw the signs. The way she was acting, the late nights. I had to do something, Brad. I couldn't just let her ruin your life." My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't about Jaden looking different. It wasn't even about race. Not really. This was about control. Mom needed to be right. She needed to be the one who saw through Tanisha, who exposed her, no matter the cost, even if it meant arming herself with a gun. I took a step back, still holding the weapon. It felt heavier now, like the weight of everything was sinking in at once. "So, what was the plan?" I asked, my voice shaking. "You were going to confront her? With this?" Mom's face twisted into something ugly. "I didn't plan anything. It's not like that. I was protecting you," she insisted. "She was lying to you. She's been making a fool of you all these years, and you're just too blinded by her to see it." Blinded? The word felt like poison in my mouth. "Mom, you tried to shoot her." I could feel the rage bubbling up inside me, something I hadn't let myself feel in years. "You brought a gun into this. You were ready to kill her over this." She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came out. For the first time, I saw it, the fear in her eyes. She had lost control, and she knew it. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. "You're not protecting me, Mom. You're protecting your version of me, the one who fits your image. You never wanted me to be with Tanisha in the first place, and now you'll do anything to make sure we fall apart." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't feel sympathy. I felt disgust. Disgust at how far she had gone, how deep the hate ran. I lowered the gun, my hands shaking, and placed it on the table. "I'm going to find out the truth," I said quietly. "And if you had anything to do with pushing Tanisha away, I swear, I'll never forgive you." Mom's tears broke free, but they weren't enough to wash away the damage. The cracks in my family, in my marriage, had just shattered into something far beyond repair. And I wasn't sure which one I'd be able to save. The gun sat on the table between us like an accusation that couldn't be unsaid. I could hear Mom's ragged breathing, see the tears streaking down her face, but none of it mattered. Not anymore. All I could feel was the weight of everything I didn't know. Tanisha, the cheating, the lies, and now this, a gun hidden away, waiting for God knows what. I had to get out of that house. The air was too thick. The walls felt like they were closing in, and the more I looked at my mother, the less I recognized her. How had we gotten here? 18 years with Tanisha, and in a single moment, my entire world was crumbling beneath me. I'm leaving, I said, my voice cold, emotionless. I need to talk to Tanisha. Mom's eyes flared. But no, you can't go to her right now. She'll twist everything around. She's good at that. She's been doing it for years. I stared at her, the person who had raised me, who had held my hand through my father's death, who had always been there. Now, she was a stranger, someone who thought pulling a trigger was the solution to my marriage problems. Someone I couldn't trust. Is there anything else you're hiding from me, Mom? I asked, my voice trembling, but I needed to know. Any other protection plans I should be aware of? Her eyes flickered with something, guilt, shame, maybe both. But she didn't answer. I thought so. I muttered, grabbing my keys. I'm done here. As I headed for the door, I heard her voice, softer now, almost pleading. I did it for you, Brad. Everything I did was for you. I didn't turn around. The truth was, I didn't know if I was more angry at her or myself. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't just about her. It was about me too. I let all this happen. Let the doubt creep in. Let her manipulate me into questioning my own wife. As I drove through the night, the road stretched out in front of me like a dark, endless void. The streetlights passed in blurry intervals, but my mind was racing, replaying every moment from the past few months, every odd behavior, every half-finished conversation with Tanisha. Could it be true? Had I been blind to something right in front of me? Or was this whole thing, my mom's twisted suspicions, just one giant manipulation? I pulled up to the house Tanisha and I had built together, the lights still on inside. My heart pounded in my chest as I sat there for a moment, staring at the front door. I knew I was about to open a door I might not be able to close again. I stepped out of the car, the cool night air biting at my skin. The front door was slightly ajar, which immediately sent a wave of unease through me. Tanisha never left the door open. I pushed it wider, stepping into the dimly lit hallway. Tanisha, I called, my voice echoing in the silence. No answer. I walked through the house, feeling the tension in my shoulders tighten with every step. Then I heard something, a quiet rustling coming from the living room. My heart thudded in my chest. As I stepped into the room, there she was standing by the window, her back to me, phone pressed to her ear. She was speaking in a low voice, too low for me to hear what she was saying, but it was her tone that hit me. It wasn't the calm, composed voice I knew. It was hurried, secretive. Tanisha, I called out, my voice harder than I intended. She flinched and turned around, her face a mix of surprise and something else, panic. She quickly hung up the phone, slipping it into her pocket. Brad, I didn't hear you come in. My stomach twisted. There was again that feeling, like there was something right in front of me, just out of reach. Who were you talking to? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but failing miserably. Her eyes flickered, and she hesitated, just for a second. It was work, just some last-minute things I needed to take care of. Work, I repeated, not believing it for a second. At this time of night? She crossed her arms, her posture shifting into that defensive stance I'd seen too many times lately. Yes, Brad. Work doesn't always end at 5 p.m. You know that. But it wasn't her words that were the problem. It was the way she said them, the way she looked at me, like she was daring me to challenge her, daring me to push further. Tanisha, I need the truth, I said, stepping closer. About everything. My mom accused you of cheating, and you called her a racist, and she is a racist, Tanisha interrupted, her voice sharp, like the very mention of my mother's name made her skin crawl. That's all this is. You know how she is, Brad. You've seen it. I have. I agreed, my voice softening. But what if that's not all? I found the gun, Tanisha. The one you mentioned. She blinked, her guard dropping just for a moment. Wait, what? You found a gun? Yes, I said, stepping closer, searching her eyes for the truth. I found it, hidden in the house. And now I need to know, what the hell is going on? Why did you bring that up? What aren't you telling me? For a long moment, she just stared at me, her eyes wide, her mind racing. I could see it. She was weighing her options, deciding how much to reveal, how much to hold back. And then, finally, she sighed, the weight of it all crashing down on her. Brad, there's something you need to know. Something I haven't told you. My stomach tightened. Here it comes, I thought. She took a deep breath, looking away from me, her voice quieter now. Your mom's been threatening me. For months. My head snapped back in shock. What? She's been sending me messages, calls, trying to intimidate me. Telling me that if I didn't leave you, she'd make sure I'd regret it. Her voice cracked a little, the first sign of real vulnerability I'd seen in her in months. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to make things worse between you two. I thought I could handle it. But then she started getting crazier. She left me a voicemail last week, Brad. She said if I didn't get out of your life, she'd take matters in her own hands. That's why I brought up the gun. I was afraid she'd actually use it. I felt like the floor had just dropped out from under me. You're saying my mom threatened you with a gun? Tanisha nodded, her face drawn and pale. I swear to you, Brad, I haven't cheated. But your mom's been losing it. She's been trying to drive us apart, and honestly, I don't know what she's capable of anymore. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But everything was so tangled now, so impossible to see through clearly. And what about the phone calls? The late nights? I asked, still desperate for answers, still fighting the doubt that had clawed its way into my mind. Tanisha looked me straight in the eyes, her expression hardening again. Those were work, Brad. I've been working overtime to make sure we're okay financially, to keep this family together, while your mom's been trying to tear it apart. You have to believe me. I stared at her, my mind spinning. Could this all really be my mother's doing? Could she have gone so far, done so much damage, that I doubted the one person who'd been on my side all along? But then again, could I trust Tanisha? After everything? Before I could say anything else, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced at it quickly, her eyes narrowing as she read the screen. Who is it? I asked, my heart racing. She looked at me, her lips pressed together. It's work, she said, her voice clipped. I'll be right back. And just like that, she slipped out of the room, leaving me standing there with more questions than answers. The truth had never felt so far away. As Tanisha disappeared into the hallway, my gut churned with suspicion. Work, she said, but at this time of night, after everything that had just happened, it didn't sit right. My heart was pounding, my mind screaming that something was off. Everything was off. I stared at her phone, still buzzing in her pocket as she walked away. A part of me wanted to trust her, to believe what she said about my mom going off the rails, but that sliver of doubt was growing, like a thorn I couldn't pull out. I moved toward the kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter to steady myself. The conversation with my mother, the gun, Tanisha's cryptic behavior. It was all swirling together in my head like a storm I couldn't escape. I needed clarity. I needed to know. And then, without thinking, I made a decision that would change everything. I followed her. The house was eerily quiet as I moved down the hall. I could hear her soft voice from the bedroom, too low for me to make out the words, but the tone was rushed, like she was trying to get through the conversation as quickly as possible. I stopped just outside the door, my breath shallow, listening. No, it's not a good time, she whispered. I'll call you later. I know, but I can't talk right now. I leaned in closer, my heart pounding in my ears. Who is she talking to? The urgency in her voice made my skin crawl. If this was really work, why the secrecy? Why the rush? Then I heard it. 2 words that nearly stopped my heart. I love you. I felt like the floor had fallen out from under me. My stomach twisted, and suddenly, everything went dark. I stumbled back, my head spinning, my world collapsing in on itself. I love you. She didn't say it to me. She said it to him. Whoever was on the other end of that phone. The late nights, the distance, the defensiveness. It all snapped into place, a twisted puzzle I never wanted to solve. I had been played, lied to, for months, maybe years. My mother wasn't crazy, at least not about this. She had seen something I hadn't, and now it was too late. The door creaked open, and Tanisha stepped out of the room, her phone still clutched in her hand. She froze when she saw me standing there, eyes wide with shock. "Brad," she started, her voice tight, but I cut her off. "Who was that?" I demanded, my voice barely controlled, trembling with anger. I could feel the blood rushing to my face, my fists clenching at my sides. Her eyes darted left and right, searching for an escape. "It was work, like I said." "Work?" I spat, stepping closer. "You tell everyone at work that you love them? Or is that just reserved for the guy you're cheating on me with?" The color drained from her face. For a moment, she just stood there, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't decide what to say. And in that split second, I saw it, the truth. She couldn't hide it anymore. Her shoulders dropped, and her entire expression shifted from surprise to something darker. Defiant. "You know what, Brad?" she said, crossing her arms and narrowing her eyes. "Phoenix, yes. You want the truth? I've been seeing someone else." "There." I said it. "Are you happy now?" Her words hit me like a sledgehammer, but there was no relief in hearing the truth. Only pure, raw pain. "For how long?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She shrugged, her face cold. "Does it matter?" "Yes, it matters." I snapped, my voice shaking with rage. "How long?" Tanisha exhaled, clearly annoyed now, as if she was bored of the conversation. "About a year. A year. An entire year of lies, of playing house, of pretending everything was fine while she was sneaking around with some other guy behind my back." My blood boiled. How had I missed it? How had I been so blind? "You've been lying to me this whole time," I said, my voice hoarse. "And what about Jaden? Is he—" "Don't you dare question that," she snapped, her eyes flashing with anger. "Jaden is your son. I swear to God, Brad, I would never lie about that." I didn't know what to believe anymore. Every word out of her mouth felt like another lie, another betrayal stacked on top of the last. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had built a life with, was gone. In her place was someone I barely recognized, someone who looked at me with contempt, like I was the one ruining everything. "Why?" I finally asked, my voice breaking. "Why did you do this? We had a life together, a family. Why would you throw all of that away?" Tanisha laughed, a short, bitter sound that made my stomach twist. "Oh, come on, Brad. Don't act like we were perfect. You've been distant for years. You're more married to your job than you ever were to me. You barely noticed when I stopped trying." "I noticed," I shot back, feeling the anger rise in me again. "I noticed, but every time I tried to fix things, you shut me out. Because you weren't really trying," she said, crossing her arms. "You just wanted to go through the motions. Pretend everything was fine, so you wouldn't have to deal with the reality of how broken we are. And when things got too real, you just turned away, left me to deal with it on my own." Her words cut deep, but I wasn't letting her off that easily. "So, your solution was to sleep with someone else? Instead of talking to me? Instead of trying to work on this?" "I did try," she snapped, "but you didn't listen. So yeah, I found someone who does listen. Someone who actually cares." I felt sick, nauseous. The room was spinning, and I couldn't breathe. This was worse than anything I could have imagined. Worse than my mother's accusations. Worse than the doubt that had been gnawing at me for months. This was the brutal, ugly truth, and it was destroying me. I turned away, not wanting her to see the tears welling up in my eyes. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing how much she had hurt me. "You're a coward," I said, my voice raw. "You didn't even give me a chance. You just ran to the first person who would make you feel better about yourself." Tanisha didn't respond. She just stood there, arms crossed, staring at me like I was the one who had betrayed her. Like she was the victim in all of this. And then, in the middle of the suffocating silence, the doorbell rang. We both froze, staring at the front door as if it had come alive. My heart raced. Who the hell could be at the door at this hour? Tanisha's face twisted in confusion, but then something else flickered behind her eyes, fear. "I'll get it," I said. wiping the tears from my eyes as I moved toward the door. My mind raced with possibilities. Another confrontation with my mom? The police? A neighbor? I opened the door, and everything around me seemed to slow down. Standing there, on my front porch, was a man, tall, well-dressed, with a smug expression that made my blood boil before he even said a word. He didn't have to, because I knew who he was. He was the man Tanisha had been seeing, the man who had shattered my life. And he looked at me like I was the one who didn't belong. "Well," he said, smirking, "I think we need to talk." I stood there, the front door wide open, my hands gripping the doorknob, so tightly my knuckles went white. It felt like the universe had cracked open and spit this man out, right onto my front porch in the middle of my shattered life. He was tall, put together in that arrogant, polished way. The kind of guy who knew he was better than you and made sure you felt it. His smirk, that barely there curve of his lips, made me want to slam the door in his face, but I couldn't. Not yet. I needed answers. Before I could say a word, Tanisha appeared behind me, her breath catching the moment she saw him. Her entire body stiffened, and I didn't need to turn around to know what that meant. Her silence was louder than any confession could have been. "Brad," she started, her voice low, like she was trying to calm a wild animal. "Let me explain." But I wasn't listening to her anymore. All I could see was him. This was the guy. The one who had wormed his way into my marriage, into my life. The one who had taken everything from me. "You must be Brad," he said, his voice smooth, dripping with self-satisfaction. "I'm Daniel. I guess I'm the guy you've been hearing about." I almost laughed. Hearing about? The guy had the nerve to stand on my doorstep, in my house, and act like this was some casual introduction. As if he wasn't the reason my entire life had just been blown apart. I wanted to hit him. I could feel the anger surging through my body, my fists clenching on their own. But more than that, I wanted to know why. Why had he come here? Why now? Was this some twisted power move? "Why are you here?" I asked, my voice barely controlled. Tanisha stepped forward, her hand outstretched toward me, but I shook her off. I couldn't even look at her. She had brought this into our lives. She had opened the door for this man to stand here now, looking me in the eye like he hadn't destroyed my family. "I thought it was time we cleared the air," Daniel said, stepping forward like he belonged in my home. He didn't. Tanisha and I, well, it's not what you think. I blinked, rage bubbling up inside me again. "Not what I think." My voice was rising, shaking. "You've been sleeping with my wife for a year, and you have the nerve to tell me it's not what I think." Tanisha stepped forward, voice pleading. "Brad, just listen." No, I turned on her, finally facing her full on, the floodgates bursting. "You don't get to explain this away. You don't get to stand there, with him, in the same house where we raised our son, and ask me to listen." She flinched, but her eyes, those eyes that had once been so familiar, so comforting, were hard now, like steel. "Brad, I never meant for this to happen," she said, but there was no emotion in her voice. It was as if she'd rehearsed this 1,000 times in her head. "But things have been broken between us for a long time." I felt like I was spinning, the words blurring together, becoming white noise in the storm of my mind. How many times had I tried to fix things? How many times had I looked for cracks in our marriage, only for her to shut me out? And now, she stood there, acting like this was inevitable. "You could have talked to me," I whispered, the hurt crashing over me like a wave I couldn't stop. "Instead, you went behind my back." With him, Daniel cleared his throat, and I whipped back around, my rage refocusing. "You should leave," I growled. "Now!" But instead of leaving, Daniel stood his ground, his smug expression hardening into something more serious. "I'm not going anywhere. You see, there's something else you need to know, Brad. Something Tanisha hasn't told you yet." My stomach dropped. Another secret? How much more could there possibly be? Tanisha's face went pale, her eyes darting between Daniel and me. For the first time that night, she looked scared, really scared. "Daniel, don't," she started, her voice trembling now. But it was too late. He had the floor, and he knew it. "I've been seeing Tanisha for a year," he said, his voice slow, deliberate. "But that's not the important part. What's important is that Tanisha and we're serious." I could barely think. Serious? What the hell does that mean? "It means," Daniel continued. Taking another step forward, we're planning a life together. She's leaving you, Brad. She just didn't have the guts to tell you yet. My heart felt like it stopped beating. I looked at Tanisha, searching for any sign that he was lying, that this was just some cruel ploy to drive the final wedge between us. But she wouldn't look at me. Her arms were crossed, her eyes locked on the floor, like she was trying to become invisible. Tanisha, I whispered, barely able to form the words. She swallowed hard, still not looking up. I was going to tell you, she said, her voice cracking. I didn't know how. Not with everything going on. I staggered back, feeling like I'd been punched in the chest. So, this was your plan? To blow up our life, to sneak around behind my back, and then what? Leave me for him? Tears were brimming in her eyes now, but I didn't care. I didn't want her tears. I wanted answers. I wanted the truth. I didn't want it to happen this way, she whispered, finally looking at me. I didn't want to hurt you like this. Daniel stepped in again, his voice smooth but with an undertone of finality. Tanisha's moving in with me next week. We've already made the arrangements. Next week. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Everything had been planned. Every detail of my life had been rewritten behind my back, and I was the last one to know. You've already planned it all? I asked, my voice trembling, my mind barely holding on to reality. Tanisha nodded, her face streaked with tears now. I'm sorry, brat. I really am. But it's too late. I can't go back. My heart shattered, and in that moment, I realized the truth. The thing I had been trying to avoid this whole time. There was no saving this. No patching up what was broken. The life I thought we had was gone, replaced by lies and betrayal so deep I couldn't even see the bottom. And the worst part? I hadn't just lost my wife. I'd lost the woman I thought she was. I looked at Daniel, standing there with that self-satisfied smirk still playing on his lips. I wanted to hit him, to tear him apart with my bare hands, but what was the point? He'd already won. He'd taken everything from me without even breaking a sweat. Tanisha wiped her eyes, taking a deep breath. I'll come by tomorrow for my things, she said quietly. I don't want to drag this out. I stared at her, feeling the finality of it all sink in. This was it. This was the end of us. And there was nothing left to say. Nothing left to salvage. Go, I muttered, my voice hollow. Just go. Without another word, Tanisha walked past me, not even glancing back as she stepped outside, Daniel following close behind. As the door shut behind them, I stood there, in the empty house we'd once called home, my entire world in ruins around me. And in the silence, I realized something. The worst part wasn't losing Tanisha. The worst part was realizing I had already lost her long before tonight. I just hadn't wanted to see it.
It was a Wednesday night. Jenny had just walked through the door after her usual evening yoga class. The way she threw her bag down this time, though, something felt off. She was different. Like the Jenny I knew had been replaced by a stranger wearing her skin. She didn't even look at me, just breezed past and headed straight for the shower. But here's the thing. Jenny never takes a shower right after coming home. She's always one to grab a glass of wine, lounge on the couch, talk about her day, complain about her boss. Anything but run to the bathroom like she's trying to scrub something off. I stared after her for a second, feeling my gut twist. I don't know what possessed me, but while the water was running, I grabbed her bag. The zipper resisted a little, like it wasn't meant to be opened tonight. Inside, everything looked normal, except for a folded piece of paper stuffed under her gym clothes. It was a receipt, but not just any receipt. A fancy restaurant. 2 people. Earlier that evening. She came home late, supposedly sweaty from yoga. But this receipt? This was for dinner at a place we'd only been to once on our anniversary. And that's because it costs as much as rent in some cities. There was no way this was a casual post-yoga meal. My blood ran cold, but I put the receipt back exactly how I found it and sat down on the couch like nothing happened. Jenny came out of the shower a few minutes later, fresh-faced, wrapped in a towel, and here's the kicker, acting like nothing had changed. She even smiled at me. This sweet, fake smile that felt like nails scraping down my spine. I wanted to confront her right then and there, but something told me to wait. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. I called in sick to work and decided to follow her. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who'd stalk his own wife, but here I was, parked a block away from her office at noon, watching her like some private investigator. And just like clockwork, Jenny left the building at lunch, but she wasn't alone. Some tall guy with a ridiculous haircut was waiting for her on the sidewalk. They hugged. Too long to be just friends. My heart was pounding in my chest as I followed them. They ended up at a quiet, little cafe on the outskirts of town. I parked down the street and made my way to the window, trying not to be seen. They were sitting in a corner, laughing, leaning in too close. And that's when I saw it. Her hand on his knee, fingers tapping like she was nervous or excited. Either way, it was intimate. Too intimate. That was when it hit me. This wasn't just some fling. This wasn't a mistake or a one-time thing. Jenny was involved with this guy, and she'd been hiding it right under my nose. I could feel my blood boiling, but instead of going inside and making a scene, I took a picture on my phone and walked away, my mind spinning with all the things I'd say to her. When I got home that evening, Jenny was already there, acting like everything was perfectly normal. I couldn't take it anymore. "Who's the guy?" I asked, standing in the doorway like I was waiting for her to confirm what I already knew. She blinked at me, all innocent, like she didn't understand the question. "What are you talking about?" "The guy you had lunch with today. Who is he?" My voice was low, but I could feel the edge creeping in. And then, get this, she laughed, like I had just asked the most ridiculous question in the world. "Oh, that? He's just a friend from work. You're not seriously worried about that, are you?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the picture I had taken through the cafe window. Her face dropped for a split second before she plastered that fake smile back on. "Okay, fine," she said, sitting down on the couch. "You caught me. But before you lose your mind, just listen to me. This isn't what you think." "What the hell is it, then?" Her eyes met mine, and for the first time in months, she didn't try to lie or look away. "I love him." Felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. I stood there, frozen. My mind couldn't fully process what she had just said. "I love him." Those 3 words detonated like a bomb inside me. I thought I'd be angry, screaming, or throwing things, but instead, I felt this eerie numbness settle over me, like my emotions were too shocked to show up. Jenny didn't even look guilty. She just sat there, calm as ever, as if we were discussing dinner plans or weekend trips. Not the fact that she just admitted she was in love with another man. I wanted to ask a million questions, but all I could manage was a hoarse, "What the hell are you talking about?" She sighed, like this was somehow harder for her than for me. "Look, I've been thinking about this for a long time. It's not like I don't care about you, but things between us, they've changed. I didn't plan for this to happen, but I've grown close to him." I was still standing there, staring at her, my mind racing. How long? How close? When did it start? But then Jenny dropped the second bombshell. She looked up at me with this twisted mix of confidence and hesitation and said, "I want you to meet him." "What?" The word shot out of my mouth before I could stop it. "I want you to meet him," she repeated, like this was some reasonable request. "You'll see he's not a bad guy. In fact, I think you two would get along if you gave it a chance." I blinked. This had to be some kind of sick joke. "Are you out of your damn mind, Jenny?" She rolled her eyes, like I was the one being unreasonable here. "I'm serious, okay? He's important to me, and I think if you understood that, if you saw that this could work, you wouldn't be so upset." "Work?" I snapped, the numbness finally cracking into rage. "You think this could work? What, you expect me to just welcome him into our lives, into our house, like nothing's wrong? Like you're not cheating on me with this guy?" Jenny crossed her arms and looked at me like I was missing the point. "It's not cheating if I'm being honest with you. That's why I'm telling you. I'm not sneaking around anymore." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Not only was she unapologetic, but she was acting like I should be grateful for her honesty. Like she deserved a medal for coming clean after stabbing me in the back. "So, what's your plan, Jenny?" I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "You want me to shake his hand, invite him over for dinner, what? Have us all sit around the table and chat about how you're sleeping with him behind my back?" She didn't flinch. "I was thinking more along the lines of finding a way to live with this. All of us. I still care about you. I don't want to leave you." My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might shatter. "You want me to just Accept this? Accept him? Her eyes locked onto mine and she said, yes. The silence that followed was unbearable. The woman I had trusted, the woman I had built my life with, was standing here asking me to share her. Like it was a reasonable compromise. Like I could learn to be okay with this. There was a time when I thought I knew every inch of her. But now she was a stranger. I didn't even recognize my own voice when I said, you're insane. But instead of backing down, Jenny's expression hardened. I don't expect you to get it right away, but think about it. We've built a life together, and I don't want to throw that away just because I have feelings for someone else. Just because. Are you serious right now? I spat. You're saying you love this guy, and you still want to stay married to me? How does that even make sense? I care about both of you, she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. I can't explain it. I love him, but I don't want to lose you either. We don't have to throw away everything we have. I just think there's a way we can make this work. I felt sick. Actually sick. My stomach twisted into knots as the full weight of what she was saying sank in. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even pretending to be. She genuinely thought I'd be okay with sharing her, that we could just carry on like some twisted version of a family, with her lover hanging around like an invited guest. Let me get this straight, I said, each word coming out slower, more deliberate. You want to bring him into our lives. What? Live with us? Spend weekends together? Watch movies while you bounce between me and him? What the hell, Jenny? She didn't look away. If it comes to that, then maybe, yeah. Why not? This doesn't have to be the end of everything. People do it all the time. That's when I knew I wasn't dealing with the same person I married. This was someone else entirely. Someone who didn't care how much she'd shattered my world. She was already living in her fantasy where this would somehow be okay, and I was the only one left stuck in reality. I could barely stand to look at her. My heart was pounding in my ears, and my hands were shaking, but I managed to choke out, "You've lost your mind." She stood up, crossing her arms like this conversation was already over, like her mind was made up. You can either accept this or we figure something else out. But I'm not giving him up. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, waiting for her to crack and admit that this was all some nightmare I'd wake up from. But no, this was real, and she had already chosen him. I didn't sleep that night, not a chance. I sat up in bed, staring at the ceiling while Jenny, on the other side, slept like a baby, like she hadn't just detonated our entire life together with that insane proposal. I could hear her breathing, steady and peaceful, as if what she asked of me was the most normal thing in the world. I couldn't get the image of that guy out of my head, her guy. I didn't even know his name, but I hated him with everything in me. The way they leaned in close at the cafe, her hand on his knee like it was second nature, like I was the third wheel in my own marriage. And now, she wanted me to welcome him into our lives, into my home. I had no words for it. It was madness. The next morning, I decided to do something I never thought I'd have to do. I went through her phone. Yeah, I know. Low move, right? But after that conversation, all bets were off. I waited until she went into the shower, then grabbed her phone off the nightstand and unlocked it. I told myself I needed proof, needed something solid to confront her with, but deep down, I already knew what I'd find. Messages. Dozens of them. The chat with Tom was pinned to the top, and when I opened it, my worst fears were confirmed. They'd been talking for months, going back and forth like they were soulmates, making plans, meeting up, and this was the part that made my skin crawl, talking about me. "I think he's starting to suspect," one of her texts said from 2 weeks ago. "But it doesn't matter. I'm ready to tell him everything. He's not going to leave. He can't." My stomach twisted in knots. They had planned this. Planned to drop this bomb on me and make it seem like it was my fault if I didn't agree to their twisted little arrangement. I kept scrolling, my hands shaking with every message. Then I found it, the smoking gun. A photo. Not just any photo, though. It was taken in our house, on our couch, in the living room where we had movie nights and laughed together. Jenny was lying across him, her head on his chest, and his arm wrapped around her like he owned her. Like he owned my life. The timestamp? 2 days ago. While I was at work, killing myself to keep this roof over our heads. I felt like I was going to be sick. The shower turned off and I quickly put the phone back where I found it. my heart racing like I just run a marathon. When Jenny came out, wrapped in a towel, she didn't suspect a thing. She gave me that same infuriating smile, as if she hadn't just blown up our marriage, as if I wasn't on the verge of snapping. "Morning," she said casually, walking over to the mirror to dry her hair. I couldn't do it. I couldn't play the game anymore. "I know about the messages," I said flatly, not even turning to look at her. There was a pause, a long one. I could hear her stop drying her hair, the weight of what I said settling in. "What are you talking about?" "The text with Tom," I said, standing up, facing her now. "I saw everything. You and him. The photo on the couch. All of it." Her face drained of color for the briefest moment, but then she snapped back into her twisted version of reality. "So, you went through my phone?" I laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh you make when you realize you've been made a fool of for too long. "That's what you're worried about? That I went through your phone? Not the fact that you've been lying to me for months? Not the fact that you've been sneaking this guy into my house?" Jenny looked down at the floor, her jaw tight. "I wasn't sneaking him in. I told you. I was going to tell you everything." "Yeah, well, congratulations. I found out before you had the chance." Her eyes shot back to mine, and for the first time, I saw something other than smug indifference. I saw frustration, maybe even anger. "And what are you going to do about it? You think going through my phone changes anything? This was always going to happen. That did it." The way she said it, like it was inevitable, like my feelings didn't matter at all. "This was always going to happen? You think I'm just going to roll over and accept this, accept him?" Jenny threw her hands up in the air, exasperated now. "I'm not asking you to like it. I'm asking you to deal with it. This is my life too, and I deserve to be happy. And I don't," I shouted, the rage boiling up inside me. "What about my happiness? What about the life we built together? Does that mean nothing to you anymore?" Her eyes flashed with something dark, something I hadn't seen before. "Don't act like you haven't been coasting through this marriage too. You know things haven't been the same between us. I just happened to find someone who gives me what you haven't." My heart was pounding in my ears. "What I haven't? What the hell does that even mean?" She folded her arms, her expression hard. "It means that you've been stuck in your routine, stuck in this idea of what we're supposed to be, and I need more. Tom gives me more." I felt my fists clenching at my sides. I wanted to punch something, scream, do anything to make this stop, but instead, I took a deep breath and said the one thing I thought might get through to her. "If you love him so much, why are you still here?" That made her pause. For the first time in this entire conversation, she didn't have an answer ready to go. After a long silence, she finally said, "Because I don't want to throw away what we've built. I told you, I still care about you. I want both." Both. There it was again, that insane idea that she could have her cake and eat it too. That she could have me and him. Like this was some kind of twisted compromise where I just learned to deal with the fact that my wife was in love with another man. I stepped closer, my voice low but dangerous. "Let me make this clear, Jenny. You don't get both. You don't get to keep me on the side while you run off with your boyfriend. I'm not some backup plan." She stared at me for a long moment, her face hard, defiant. And then she said the most infuriating thing of all. "Well, you'll have to decide what you can live with." And just like that, she turned and walked out of the room, leaving me standing there in the wreckage of what used to be our life. The worst part? I wasn't even sure anymore if I had the strength to fight her. Or if she was right, if maybe, in some twisted way, I was going to have to decide what I could live with. The days after that conversation were a blur. I felt like I was walking through quicksand, sinking deeper into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Jenny acted like nothing had changed, as if her revelation was just some awkward conversation we'd both get over in time. She didn't bring up him again. Tom, the man who'd stolen my wife from me, and I didn't ask. But the silence was suffocating. I knew what she wanted. She was waiting for me to crack, to give in and tell her I'd accept it, accept him in my life like some twisted new normal. But there was no way I could do that. Every time I saw her, I felt this wave of disgust and betrayal crash over me, knowing she was sharing herself with him. The same smile she gave me at breakfast, the same casual kisses before bed. Were they his now too? Did she touch him the same way? laugh at his jokes the same way she used to laugh at mine. The anger was always there, simmering beneath the surface, but I didn't show it. Not yet. I needed to know more, needed to understand the full extent of her betrayal before I made my move. That's when I decided to do something I'd never thought I was capable of. I started investigating my own wife. It was Saturday when I followed her. Jenny told me she was going to meet a friend for coffee. Her tone deliberately casual. She didn't even bother lying anymore. Not really. She knew I wasn't dumb enough to buy the lie, but she still played the game, acting like everything was fine. I didn't say anything. I just nodded, kissed her on the cheek, and waited for her to leave. As soon as the door clicked shut, I grabbed my keys and slipped out the back, keeping my distance as I followed her car. My heart was racing the entire time, a mix of adrenaline and dread coursing through my veins. I wasn't sure if I could handle what I was about to see, but I had to know. She didn't go to a coffee shop. Instead, she drove to a house on the other side of town. A modest, single-story place with a neatly kept yard. His house, no doubt. She parked out front, got out of the car, and didn't even hesitate before walking straight to the door. He must have been waiting for her because she didn't knock, just walked right in, like she belonged there. I stayed in my car down the street, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I should have charged in there, kicked the door down, confronted them both, but something held me back. Maybe it was the fear of what I'd find inside. Maybe it was the last shred of hope that this wasn't what I thought it was. But hope's a cruel thing sometimes. I waited an hour, my mind racing, replaying every moment of our relationship, searching for the signs I'd missed. Was this my fault? Had I failed her somehow? Or was this always who she was, hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself? I didn't know anymore. All I knew was that I was sitting outside the house of a man who was inside with my wife. When she finally left, she looked different, relaxed almost. She didn't see me as she drove away, her face glowing with some disgusting kind of contentment that made me sick to my stomach. Whatever happened in there, it made her feel good, happy. That night, when she came home, she kissed me like nothing had happened. But I could still smell the faint scent of cologne on her skin, his cologne. I clenched my jaw and forced myself to smile back, swallowing down the rage threatening to explode out of me. Not yet. Not here. I needed to play the part for just a little longer. The breaking point came the next day. Jenny was in the kitchen, making dinner like it was any other Sunday. I watched her from the doorway, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. I couldn't take it anymore. The lies, the casual betrayal, the way she pretended everything was normal when I knew damn well what she was doing behind my back. Without thinking, I stepped into the kitchen, my voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "Did you enjoy yourself yesterday?" She froze, a knife in her hand, halfway through slicing a tomato. Slowly, she looked up at me, her face unreadable. "What do you mean? Don't play dumb, Jenny," I said, my voice shaking with barely contained anger. "I followed you. I saw where you went." Her eyes flickered with something. Panic? No, not quite. More like irritation, like I was inconveniencing her by bringing it up. "You followed me?" she repeated, her voice calm but with an edge of disbelief. "Are you serious?" "I had to," I snapped. "You're sneaking around with this guy, lying to my face, and now you're acting like I'm the one who's out of line?" Jenny put the knife down and turned to face me fully, arms crossed. "I told you I wasn't going to lie anymore. I told you I'd be honest. So yeah, I saw him. What of it? What of it?" I echoed, my voice rising. "You're sleeping with another man, Jenny. You don't get to just brush it off like it's no big deal." She shrugged, like this was some petty argument about laundry, not our entire marriage on the line. "I don't know what you want me to say, Mark. I've been honest with you. I'm not going to apologize for finding happiness." The sheer audacity of her words made my blood boil. Happiness? What about my happiness, Jenny? What about the promises we made to each other? Do those mean nothing to you anymore? She stared at me, and for a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not guilt, not remorse, just cold, calculating logic. "I never said I wanted to leave you. I told you from the start, I want both, you and Tom. Why can't you just accept that? Accept it." I laughed, but there was no humor in it, just raw disbelief. You want me to accept the fact that you're in love with another man? That you've been sneaking around behind my back for months? And now you're asking me to be okay with it? To share you? Yes, she said, her voice steady, as if what she was saying made perfect sense. I told you, Mark, this doesn't have to be the end. We can make this work if you're willing to try. I took a step closer, my eyes locking onto hers. And if I'm not willing to try? Her silence was deafening. She didn't look away, didn't flinch, just stood there, waiting. She didn't have to say it. The ultimatum was clear in her eyes. Either accept this twisted arrangement or lose her. I didn't know what was worse, the fact that she expected me to share her, or the fact that part of me was actually considering it. I didn't sleep again that night. Every word she said replayed in my head like a broken record. We can make this work. You just need to try. Like I was the one who needed to change, like I was the one who had to adjust to her affair. She was giving me an ultimatum, accept this or lose her, and somehow that smug confidence in her voice made me angrier than I thought possible. But beneath the anger, there was this gnawing doubt. What if I couldn't let her go? What if she was right? Maybe I had gotten too comfortable. Maybe I'd missed something. Was I really so weak that I'd actually consider putting up with this, all for the sake of saving a marriage that deep down was already dead? I couldn't do it. There was no way I could live like this, knowing she was splitting her time between me and him, thinking of her with him while we sat in silence over dinner, watching her text him while pretending everything was fine. But I had to confront her one last time. I had to hear her say it, to admit that this was the future she truly wanted, that she was willing to throw everything away, just to keep this guy in her life. The next morning, she was acting like nothing had happened. She was making coffee, scrolling through her phone at the kitchen table, and there it was. The same smile, the same casual attitude, like she hadn't just ripped out my heart the night before. I couldn't stand it. I walked up to her, every step feeling heavier than the last, my pulse racing. I needed to get this over with. We need to talk, I said, my voice low, but it felt like it echoed through the room. Jenny looked up from her phone, that same look of mild annoyance flashing across her face. Now? Can it wait? I'm heading out soon. I felt the blood drain from my face. Out? Where? She gave me a half-smile, as if she knew exactly what I was thinking. I'm meeting Tom. That was it. That was the final straw. You've got to be kidding me, I said, my voice trembling with the fury I could barely contain. You're just going to walk out of here, after everything you said yesterday, and go meet him? Just like that? She shrugged, completely unbothered by my outburst. We already talked about this, Mark. I told you this is what it is. I'm not going to sneak around anymore. I'm being open with you. Open? I scoffed, my hands shaking at my sides. You're being open about betraying me? About disrespecting everything we built together? You think that makes it okay? Jenny sighed, setting her phone down like she was dealing with a stubborn child. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I'm not choosing between you and him. I told you, I want both of you in my life. I'm not leaving you, but I'm not leaving him either. If you can't handle that, then that's on you. There it was again, that's on you. Like this was my fault, like I was the one being unreasonable for not accepting this sick situation. I could feel my chest tightening, my vision blurring with the sheer rage building inside me. You know what? I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Maybe you should choose. Her eyes narrowed, her posture stiffening slightly. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm done playing this game. I snapped, my voice growing louder. I'm done pretending this is something I can live with. You want to be with him? Fine. But you don't get to keep me hanging around like some backup plan. You don't get both, Jenny. So you either end it with him or we're done. I didn't know what I expected her reaction to be. Shock. Maybe regret. Anything that showed she actually gave a damn about our marriage. But instead, she stood up slowly, her expression unreadable, and crossed her arms. You're giving me an ultimatum? I nodded. That's exactly what I'm doing. For a long moment, she just stared at me, her face hardening like stone. Then, with a calmness that chilled me to the bone, she said, I'm not ending it with him, Mark. Those words hit me like a punch to the gut. She didn't even hesitate. No flinch, no second thoughts. just cold certainty. You're seriously choosing him? I asked, my voice cracking as I tried to wrap my head around it. I'm choosing what makes me happy, she said, her voice flat, like this was the final answer to a math problem. And if you can't accept that, then maybe this marriage isn't what I need anymore. The room felt like it was spinning. Everything we had, years of building a life together, years of what I thought was love, was crumbling in front of me, and she couldn't even look me in the eye as she dismantled it. I can't believe this, I muttered, shaking my head. After everything we've been through, this is how it ends? Jenny shrugged again, that same infuriating indifference plastered across her face. It doesn't have to end. You're the one walking away. My throat tightened, and I could barely speak. I'm not walking away. You already did. For the first time, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not regret, not guilt, but something close to disappointment. I thought you'd be stronger than this, she said, her voice soft but cutting. I thought you'd understand. Understand. I snapped, feeling my blood boil again. You think I should understand you sleeping with someone else? That you'd have the audacity to ask me to accept that? She didn't respond. She just stood there, arms crossed, waiting for me to finish, like this was some kind of script we both knew by heart. There was nothing left to say. She had made her choice, and I had to make mine. I walked past her, every step feeling heavier than the last. I grabbed my keys off the counter and headed for the door, my heart pounding in my chest. Just as I was about to leave, I turned back to look at her one last time. You know, I said quietly, I loved you, but you killed that. Jenny didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even try to stop me. She just stood there, arms crossed, watching me leave like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like this was how it was always going to end. As I stepped outside, the weight of what had just happened hit me like a freight train. The life I thought I had, the future I thought we were building, it was all gone. Shattered by her selfishness, her betrayal, and my own inability to see the cracks forming long before this moment. I got in my car and drove. I didn't know where I was going, didn't care. All I knew was that I couldn't be there anymore. Not in that house. Not with her. Not in the life that wasn't mine anymore. I drove for hours. No destination. No plan. Just the road stretching ahead like an empty void. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard I thought I might break it. My mind was racing, thoughts crashing into each other like waves in a storm. Rage, disbelief, sadness, and this crushing sense of failure. I felt like a fool, like I'd been living in a dream while Jenny was tearing our life apart behind my back. I kept asking myself the same question over and over. How did it come to this? I pulled into a random parking lot, one of those roadside rest stops that nobody actually uses unless they're desperate. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring out the windshield at nothing, just letting the silence suffocate me. My phone buzzed in the cup holder, lighting up with a text from Jenny. Are you coming back home tonight? I laughed bitterly at the message, tossing the phone onto the passenger seat without even responding. Coming back home? What home? That house wasn't home anymore. It was just a shell now, filled with memories of a marriage that was already dead. I sat there, thinking about everything she'd said. The way she talked about happiness, about keeping both me and Tom in her life like we were just pieces of some puzzle she was putting together. And the way she hadn't hesitated when I gave her the ultimatum. Not even a flicker of doubt in her eyes. She was ready to let me go just to keep him. The woman I thought I knew was long gone, replaced by someone who had no problem discarding me the moment I stopped serving her vision of a perfect life. The phone buzzed again. Another text. This one was shorter. We need to talk. Talk? What else was there to talk about? She had already made her choice. But something inside me told me to go back. Not because I wanted to hear her out, but because I needed closure. I needed to make sure this was really over, that there was nothing left to salvage. I turned the car around and headed back, the anger inside me twisting into something darker, something more like resolve. This wasn't about saving the marriage anymore. This was about making sure I walked away knowing I hadn't left anything unsaid. When I pulled into the driveway, the house felt smaller, almost claustrophobic. I could see her through the window, sitting on the couch, her face illuminated by her phone's glow. I hesitated for a moment before getting out of the car, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. This was it. The final confrontation. I opened the front door and stepped inside. Jenny looked up at me, her expression unreadable. For a second, neither of us spoke. The tension between us was thick, heavy, like the weight of everything that had been left unsaid was pressing down on both of us. "I didn't think you'd come back," she said finally, her voice quiet, almost sad. "Yeah, well," I muttered, closing the door behind me. "You said we needed to talk." She set her phone down and stood up, folding her arms across her chest, as if preparing herself for a battle. "I know you're angry, and you have every right to be," she started, her voice calm but firm. "But we need to figure out what happens next. We can't keep living in this limbo." "Limbo?" I echoed, my voice sharp with disbelief. "You're the one who put us here, Jenny. You're the one who decided this life wasn't enough for you. So, don't stand there and act like I'm the one dragging this out." Her eyes narrowed slightly, but she didn't snap back. Instead, she sighed. "I know I hurt you. I didn't mean for it to happen this way, but it did. And now we have to deal with it. I just want to find a way where we don't have to lose everything." I stared at her, feeling that same sickening mix of anger and disbelief rising in my chest. "Jenny, do you even hear yourself? You're talking about not losing everything, but you've already thrown everything away. You chose him. You made that clear the second you told me you weren't giving him up." She didn't flinch, but I saw the tension in her jaw, the way her hands gripped her arms a little tighter. "I didn't choose him over you, Mark. I chose what I need to be happy. I couldn't hold it in anymore." "You need to be happy? What about me? What about the life we built together? Or does that not matter anymore, because you've decided this guy is the missing piece to your perfect little world?" Her eyes flashed with frustration, her calm facade starting to crack. "It's not that simple. I told you from the beginning, I never wanted to hurt you. I just didn't want to give up something that made me feel alive." "And what about me, Jenny?" I shot back, stepping closer. "What am I supposed to feel? Am I just supposed to accept that I'll never be enough for you again? That I'll always be second to him?" She looked away, biting her lip. For the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. "It's not about being second," she said quietly. "It's about more. More." I scoffed. "What, you think love is some buffet where you get to pile on whatever you want, as much as you want, and expect me to sit here and be okay with it?" She didn't answer. She just stared at the floor, the silence between us growing louder by the second. I shook my head, feeling the last threads of hope unravel inside me. "You want more? Fine. You can have it. You can have all of it. But not with me." Her head snapped up, her eyes wide, and for a brief moment, I saw something close to fear in them. "Mark." "No," I interrupted, my voice steady, but full of finality. "We're done, Jenny. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. I'm not going to spend another day of my life fighting for someone who doesn't want me." She opened her mouth to argue, but the words died on her lips. She knew, deep down, she knew this was it, that I wasn't bluffing, that she had finally pushed me too far. For a moment, she looked like she might cry, but then that same cold resolve I'd seen before crept back into her expression. "If that's what you want," she said, her voice hollow. I nodded, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. "It's what I need." I walked past her, grabbing my jacket from the hook by the door. As I reached for the handle, I stopped, turning back one last time. "You know, Jenny, I hope he makes you happy. I really do. But someday you're going to realize that more isn't always better." She didn't respond. She just stood there, watching me leave, her face a mask of unreadable emotion. And as I stepped outside, breathing in the cool night air, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Freedom. As I walked away from the house, it hit me. I was finally free. The weight I'd been carrying for months, the suffocating sense of betrayal, the endless cycle of anger and doubt, it was gone. But with the freedom came a strange emptiness. I wasn't sure if I'd made the right decision, even though I knew there was no going back. The life I had with Jenny was over, and now I had to face whatever came next. I drove to a bar, not the local dive where Jenny and I used to meet friends, but a place on the other side of town, far enough away that nobody would recognize me. I ordered a whiskey, neat, The burn was sharp, but it cut through the numbness that had settled in since our last conversation. I sat there, staring at the glass, replaying everything. Her cold, emotionless expression as she let me walk out the door. The way she hadn't even tried to fight for us, to fix what was broken. It was like she had been waiting for this moment, ready to drop me the second I pushed back. It made me sick to think how long she'd been planning for this, how little I meant to her compared to him. I glanced at my phone. I hadn't heard from her since I left, and part of me expected a message, maybe some half-assed attempt at reconciliation or one last shot at explaining herself. But the screen was blank. Nothing. Silence. The bartender came over, noticing the look on my face. He was an older guy, gray beard, eyes that had seen too much. "Rough night?" he asked, sliding me another drink. I chuckled darkly, swirling the amber liquid in my glass. "You could say that." "Wanna talk about it?" For a second, I almost did. I almost unloaded the whole mess on this stranger who didn't know me, who wouldn't judge. But instead, I shook my head. Nah, just needed to clear my head. He nodded like he understood. "Well, if you change your mind, I'm here. But just a heads up, whiskey doesn't usually solve much. Just numbs it for a while." I raised my glass. "Numbing it sounds pretty good right now." He chuckled and left me to it. As I sipped the second drink, my phone buzzed. For a second, my heart jumped, thinking it was Jenny. But when I looked down, it wasn't her. It was a text from an old friend, Eric. We hadn't talked in a while. Life had gotten in the way. I'd shut myself off from most people lately, too wrapped up in Jenny and the whole mess to keep up with anyone. But now I needed to reconnect. The message was simple. "Haven't seen you around. Everything good?" I stared at the screen for a moment, considering how to respond. I could brush him off, say everything was fine, or I could tell the truth for once. I decided on the latter. "Not really. Jenny and I are done." His response came quicker than I expected. "Holy SHT, man. What happened?" Asterisk. I hesitated for a moment before typing out the short version. "She's been cheating. For months. She chose him over me." There was a long pause before Eric replied. "Damn. I'm sorry to hear that. You want to meet up? Talk about it?" I hadn't realized how much I needed that offer until he sent it. I'd been drowning in this mess alone for so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like to lean on someone. "Yeah." I texted back. "Let's do that. Tonight. I'm at Finnegan's. Come through." I threw some cash on the bar and headed out, grateful for the distraction. When I got to Finnegan's, Eric was already there, sitting in a booth with a beer in hand. He stood up when he saw me, giving me that look friends give when they know you're going through hell. "Man, I'm sorry," he said, pulling me into a quick hug before we sat down. "I had no idea. I didn't want anyone to know," I admitted, rubbing the back of my neck. "Thought I could fix it. But it's beyond fixing." Eric shook his head, his eyes narrowing. "You don't deserve that, bro. I always thought Jenny was, I don't know, distant, but this is next level." I nodded, sipping the beer he'd ordered for me. "Yeah, it's been hell. She didn't even fight for us, man. It's like she was just waiting for the moment to let me go." Eric leaned back, his face serious. "So what now? You gonna try to get her back?" The thought hadn't even crossed my mind since I left. "No, there's no going back. I made that clear. It's over." "That's probably for the best," he said, nodding slowly. "If she can do that to you, she's not worth fighting for." I sighed, feeling the weight of the last few months settle over me again. "You're right. I know that. It's just, I didn't think it would end like this. I never thought I'd be here, picking up the pieces of a life I thought was solid." Eric shook his head, his expression dark. "No one sees it coming, but you can't let her mess with your head like this. She's the one who screwed up, not you." "I know," I said, though it still didn't feel real. "I guess I just have to figure out what comes next." Eric raised his glass. "Here's to figuring it out." I clinked my beer against his, feeling a strange sense of relief wash over me. For the first time in months, I wasn't alone. I had someone in my corner, someone who wasn't going to judge or push me into doing something I wasn't ready for. As the night went on, Eric and I talked about everything but Jenny. Old stories, stupid jokes, anything to lighten the mood. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I laughed. It wasn't the hollow, forced laugh I'd been faking with Jenny. It was real. By the time I left the bar, I felt lighter. Not fixed, not whole, but lighter. Eric had reminded me that there was a world outside of the one Jenny had destroyed, and maybe, just maybe, I could find a way to rebuild it. As I drove home, the road stretched out before me, open and uncertain, and for the first time in a long time I didn't feel lost. I felt like I was finally finding my way back to myself. The next few days were strange. After that night with Eric, things started to feel different. Not fixed, not healed, but different. Lighter. I hadn't realized how suffocating my life with Jenny had become. How much of myself I'd lost in trying to hold on to something that was already gone. Now, without her, there was space to breathe. Space to think. I hadn't gone back to the house since the night I left. The thought of seeing her again, of facing that hollow, emotionless mask she'd worn, was more than I could take. I knew I had to deal with it eventually. The house, the paperwork, the final conversations, but not yet. I needed time. Jenny texted me a few times. At first, they were casual, like she was testing the waters. "Are you okay? Can we talk?" But I didn't respond. What was left to say? We'd both drawn our lines in the sand, and I wasn't going to erase mine just because she felt uncomfortable with the silence. I didn't know her any more of me. Then came the harder messages. Desperate, almost. "We need to figure this out. I miss you." I stared at that one for a long time. Miss me? What part of me did she miss? The part that used to blindly trust her? The part that let her walk all over me? No, she didn't miss me. She missed the safety net I used to provide. And now that it was gone, she was starting to feel the weight of her choices. But it wasn't my job to make her feel better anymore. I threw myself into work, into rebuilding my routine. The mornings were the hardest. Waking up alone, the house too quiet, the bed too big. I'd spent years with Jenny beside me, and now every empty space in the house screamed her absence. But as the days passed, the silence became bearable. I realized that it wasn't the loneliness I was feeling, but the absence of chaos. The absence of constant tension, of walking on eggshells around someone who had already checked out of our life together. I started going to the gym again. It was something I hadn't made time for in months, too caught up in trying to patch the sinking ship of my marriage. The physical exhaustion was a relief, something I could control. I pushed myself harder than ever, sweat dripping down my face, muscles burning, as if I could sweat out the pain, the anger, the heartbreak. One evening, after a brutal workout, I sat in the car, the gym's parking lot nearly empty, and I stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror. For the first time in what felt like forever, I saw someone I recognized. Not the broken man who had watched his wife slip away, but the guy I used to be before all this. The guy who had dreams, who had plans, who wasn't afraid to move forward. I'd lost sight of him, buried under the weight of Jenny's betrayal. But now, he was still there, just waiting for me to find him again. That night, I made a decision. I was going to the house. Not to talk, not to negotiate, but to finalize the last chapter of this mess and take back what was mine. I showed up the next afternoon, unannounced. My key still worked, though I wasn't sure how long that would last. As I stepped inside, the air felt heavier than I remembered, like the walls themselves were saturated with tension. Jenny was sitting on the couch, her phone in her hand, scrolling through something mindlessly. When she saw me, her eyes widened in surprise. "Mark," she breathed, standing up. "I didn't think you'd." I cut her off. "I'm just here to get the rest of my things. We need to start the process of selling the house, or you can buy me out. Whatever you want to do. But this is done, Jenny." Her mouth opened slightly, as if she was going to argue. But then she closed it, her shoulders slumping. "You're really done with us?" There it was. That small, final plea, the last grasp for control. She wasn't used to this, me being in control, me taking charge of my life. For so long, she had dictated the terms of our marriage, of our relationship, and now that I wasn't playing by her rules anymore, she didn't know what to do. "I was done the moment you chose him over me," I said, my voice steady. "You just didn't realize it." Her eyes flickered with something, regret, maybe, or fear. "I didn't want it to end like this." "You made your choice, Jenny," I said, shaking my head. "You wanted more, and now you've got it." I hope it was worth it. She looked away, biting her lip, and for a brief moment, I saw the cracks in her armor. Maybe she was starting to regret what she'd done. Maybe she realized that more wasn't as perfect as she thought it would be. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I gathered my things quickly, shoving clothes into bags, grabbing whatever was left of my life in that house. Jenny watched from the doorway, saying nothing, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. When I was done, I turned to her one last time. "Goodbye, Jenny," I said, the finality of the words settling over both of us. She didn't respond, just nodded, her lips pressed into a thin line, as if she knew there was nothing left to say. I walked out the door and didn't look back. In the weeks that followed, I felt myself slowly coming back to life. The paperwork for the house was started, the divorce papers drawn up. I made sure everything was clean, final, with no room for second-guessing or regrets. The chapter with Jenny was closed, sealed off like a scar that would fade over time but never fully disappear. But it wouldn't define me. One night, I found myself sitting on the balcony of my new apartment, a small but cozy place I'd rented on the edge of the city. The cool breeze ruffled my hair, and for the first time in months, I felt at peace. There was no more waiting for the other shoe to drop, no more wondering if I was enough, no more pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I was free, and as I looked out over the city, lights twinkling in the distance, I realized something that had taken me months to figure out. Jenny had never been my whole life. I'd made her the center of it, wrapped everything around her, but in the process, I'd lost myself. Now, with her gone, I was starting to find pieces of myself again. And for the first time in a long time, the future felt wide open. There was no fear of what was to come, no bitterness about what had been lost, just a quiet, steady belief that I could build something new, something better, and this time it would be all mine.